All right, guys. I am super excited for this one tonight. This is going to be awesome. Laura and I are co-hosting tonight. This is our idea to get all the favorite people that we like on a panel and kind of see what happens. I don't know. And so, yeah, we've been conspiring a little bit, and we've all done work together in different ways in different panels. And to put this group together was just a fun little thing for us. And for those of you who may not be familiar with any of these guys, or even me for that matter, we'll start out with just everybody going around giving a little bit of background, just so everybody can be caught up. And but before we get going, I'm going to ask you guys to do some things. If you could please share this. This is really, really important information that we're putting out. So if you can go to your Facebook page, everybody who's watching, I see a lot of people on here, and it's good to see everybody here tonight. Please do share, do your diligence. You never know as things go out what kind of things are going to be said tonight to activate someone else, to bring an inspiration or hope, or maybe a confirmation, or, you know, a lot of things that are within the DNA are just sitting there in packages waiting for something to ignite it. And I really feel like this group here tonight, that there's going to be some activations. And so please do share, tag, do your due diligence, and definitely excited. Laura and I have been really excited to do this one. So thank you, everybody, from both of us. And Laura, I don't know if you want to say anything. Oh, you're on mute.
Man, I always do that. You'd think I'd know better by now. I mean, this is incredible. I've known Tony for many years. I've known you, Sharnael, as well. Elena. I mean, we've all known each other for beyond like this incarnation, of course. But it's just been recent that Elena and I have just shared a lot. And what an interesting panel to come together, because, you know, Tony has a lot of background in the secret space programs. Elena's a contactee. Dr. Sharnael has a lot of experiences with, you know, crazy projects and things that relate to secret space programs and off-planet things. But everybody has a connection with the benevolence as well, the benevolence within themselves, their higher self, their ability to heal, to remember, and to really work with that in a way that's in service to humanity. So everybody's got their unique story, and it's just such an interesting and diverse sort of group with so many common threads at the same time, so that we can really begin to understand this much larger picture. And then there's me, and I don't know what to say. I don't know. I don't know what the heck's going on with me. Definitely a dot connector, and just learning so much from everybody, and doing my best to voice my truth, my experiences, and just really honor my mission and calling, which I definitely feel very strong in. Like, that's all I really know. And I just feel this is a great group to come together to just bring out all sorts of stuff, and where we might find some, you know, links that help us to connect some dots, while all of us, I know, just have a really strong spiritual foundation that helps us in every day face the crazy times that we're in, and also the crazy stuff that in places we've been before, and where we might still be going without maybe even realizing it. The thing that I love about this group, and hopefully with myself, is the ability to shine consciousness and life in the unconscious. And I think that is what's so important for humanity right now. So I'll just leave it at that. But that is one of the things that I feel is sort of a natural theme that's emerging, is shining light on what's unconscious, so that we can see that much, much larger picture and process through some of these hidden memories and emotions and experiences, so that we can take the best of it and transmute and release ourselves from the stuff that's trying to own us and control us.
Awesome. Well, Elena, you want to start with your background?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've had psychic abilities since my birth, and I was born in France, for those who don't know me and will guess after 5 minutes me speaking. So my story is that I was abducted when I was 9 years old by regressive greys, and rescued in the process by benevolent people from the Galactic Federation. And since I kept contact all my life with them. Recently, 2 years ago, I underwent a hypnosis session to really get one particular night of my abduction back. And since that time, I decided to write a book about my story. So that's how people got to know me. But I had contact with these benevolent aliens all my life. Yes, thank you. And they've taught me a lot of things, showed me a map of the stars, took me many times on board their ship, and it was quite mind-blowing growing up with this experience. And I was always shy to tell anyone because I was considered as crazy and couldn't have friends or boyfriends saying that. So I just put it in a drawer. And when I was having experience and contact, I was keeping it for myself. It was very hard. It was very lonely.
Isolating, definitely,
Yes.
for sure. And you, Tony?
Oh, I know exactly what she means by that, for sure.
Yes.
It still is. I mean, really, since I've gone public with my story, in my day-to-day, like the audience is very spread apart. People that are aware of this information, that take it with that are the people that look at this information and look for more information and keep going. A lot of people look at it and they go, whatever, they find something, they get on with their life, because people kind of have their heads in the sand. If you're clipping along great in life in the system, they don't really care to learn more about how the system is fake. So that's what we are when you're talking about ETs, because the system is telling us that we're all alone. And if we're okay, and then recently they're like, well, we're not alone, but we still can't get out there, so don't worry about it. So the system is a lie. So anybody that's enjoying their life in the system doesn't want to hear it. So we're spread apart. So the people around me in my life, I'm just as isolated. I totally get that feeling. I can't talk about a major, and this is actually, turns out, since I got my memories back, this is what I'm really good at. I'm just a kind of a normal, mediocre guy in my life at what I do. And but this is what I'm good at, because not many people have recalled their memories from being taken. I was taken when I was 10, and as a punishment, in a form of a punishment, and did a 20-year tour. They call it a career return. It sounds better than what it is. And then 20 and back, whatever. There's a lot of different names, but I was taken and went and came back and was different. I was always different, and I still come to grips. Grips with it. Like, I still come to terms with what I know. And there's a lot of times when it's not that I try to forget, it's just that I forget. I move on with my life. I'm in my life. And so my experience, I'm constantly reminding myself, because I do shows like this and I do interviews. I have my show. Elena and Laura have both been on my show. It's been awesome. But it's hard to remind myself of all the horrible stuff I went through. I don't know if that's my sound or not. There's a little bit of a buzz in my ear. But I think it's important. The thing is, where I'm already went too far gone with telling everybody my story. But I feel like it's very important, and maybe not. It might not. The things that I've said may not come into play for now, but in the future may be important information for somebody. So I feel like I couldn't take it to the grave, and I would not be able to live with myself if I didn't come forward and say the things that I remember going through. And sadly and fortunately, a lot of it checks out. And one thing, when I heard Elena first, I never heard of her. She's been public for over a year, right, Elena? I'd never heard. And then I caught her podcast on Exopolitics and listened. In the first 15 minutes of it, I went, oh my God, that's almost exactly like the same cast of bad characters that took me. It was the same program that took me. And she was fortunately intervened by benevolence, but I kind of went into that, but the similarities were just amazing. And since I've been forward, I've dealt with thousands of people, and I still do. I still talk to people all the time that have similar experiences, similar memories, and it's. I don't want to say it's too rare, but it's rare that I deal with somebody that had the same kind of dots. You know what I mean? Like, we're in the very beginning, the same exact experience in the beginning, and. The reality is, of what I've learned from talking with people, is that we are being interacted with by not just one or two, or a secret space program, or not just one group or three groups, but thousands of different sources of ET contact, and all along the spectrum of technology, and all along the spectrum of intention. Some of them intend very bad things. Some of us see us as livestock or cattle or bad things, and some of them love us the same way that we would love them. And some people are very loving, and there's a certain level of life where you just kind of, quit hating yourself, and so that allows you to love everything. You know what I mean? I've had a lot of, it's weird, the last month I've had a lot of discussions with people, and I say, I consider myself a friend of everything, and every living thing is my friend, and some of them need more space than others. I mean, that's just my take on things. And there's a certain level of awareness that goes along that, and some people are never going to get there in this life, and some people are already. And it's just, we're also being, as diverse as people are, that's how diverse our ET contact is.
And if I may say, Tony, isn't it, I know you understand that, isn't it paradoxal to all your life know and feel that we are not alone in the universe, that there are so many other species, but feeling in the same time lonely on your own planet, in your own life, within your own clan, family? This is so paradoxal, and it is really, this is awkward. Don't you think?
Yes, and there's a paradox between people, I think. So on one hand, we're looking at it, we are in a lifetime of disclosure. Like, we're in that window of a civilization that on one hand was, in agriculture, agrarian society, and then getting into a tech society just in my lifetime, in our lifetime. And then we're going to get a disclosure. We're going to get disclosure. So we're going to go from, farms to space farms soon.
Yep.
And so the people before that, it's paradoxical because it's also kind of a blessing. Ignorance is bliss. The people that are living their life that without this knowledge, it's kind of a blissful ignorance. So I'm kind of, on one hand, there really is a real loss of innocence for the people that are going to get woke up the hard way very soon.
I agree.
So after a disclosure, a lot of people that don't want to deal with it, and it's actually become subject matter for some of the shows that I've done recently, is because I'm trying to get new people on the show and new guests and cover more of a broader subject matter. And some people just don't want to talk about disclosure. They don't want to think about it, and they think that it's going to be a great loss to us, to everybody. They think it's going to be a huge loss, and it is by large. We're going to have to leave the nest. We're getting pushed out of the nest after a disclosure. That's just ultimately what it's going to be, and that's a paradox too. So, but I really wish that I could speak freely about what I know. Some people in my life, and I still feel weird because I feel like I'm kind of cursing them in a way. In my personal life, if I give people a ton of info, I feel like they're going to go out in their life and repeat it and not be able to really defend themselves as well as I can in a conversation, because I've researched, I've had people that were professional researchers research the information and come up with things that I know. And so to give it to somebody that doesn't, and then they go on and get into conversation, it's like, I feel like I'm cursing them, but it's what it is. It's a paradox. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, let me hear about Laura's background, and I'll give a little bit of mine, and then I have some really good questions for everybody that I think, and I think Laura has some, and Elena actually gave me one too. So I want this to be real flowing and what have you, and just feel free. But Laura, definitely just your background.
Well, it's hard not to want to just say a few things based on what you guys just shared, which was so powerful. That loss of innocence takes one into the dark night of the soul to purify the unconscious realms and the places where, you can be convinced that everything is hunky-dory. This is the school systems. This is reality. This is life. And you can do your best and you can feel that innocence. But we almost have to be broken to enter that larger picture. And so to talk about a little bit about me, these are the dimensions and realms that I was exploring starting from childhood. Is I felt a loss of innocence due to assaults and, terrible things like we've all been through, not in varying degrees, and there's no way to possibly compare. especially on a bigger picture level as far as where we've been, where we've gone. I feel as a part of this greater initiation to have to move through some of the heaviest of heaviest to be able to find a more primordial innocence that is able to come out the other end and face all that darkness, face all that confusion, shame, or feeling contaminated, violated, abused, and to rise above it. And that really is the hallmark of a lot of my path. I started writing when I was a kid, and it had very much to do with going into the underworlds and that purification process, even though it doesn't feel good. You know, you feel that loss of childhood, you feel that loss of a certain level of innocence that kind of returns to a greater level of innocence, because there's that willingness to purify and to face things that most people wouldn't want to face, and they're scared of it. So anyway, I think, you know, I don't know who's familiar with me or not. I've been an international speaker, great-granddaughter of President Eisenhower. So that was kind of trippy to process at a young age. I know we had an agreement before this lifetime. I'm working on completing some books. My background's in wilderness education and expedition leadership. I couldn't focus at school. I was called ADD, and I'm attention on different dimensions, which we brought up recently. It's like, I'm just a really kind of out there person, but I feel very connected to Mother Earth and this process that we're in. And I've always sort of been prepared by benevolent forces and really dark forces, appreciating kind of the role both played to understand this, you know, greater mission. And that's why I'm so inspired, you know, by you guys, because I feel so at home. And the isolation, you know, finding a sense of sanctuary in that loneliness has been such a task. Sometimes I feel I have it, and then other times I lose it. I'm just like in a fetal position. And sometimes even to this day, I'm like, man, I thought I was so much further ahead, but I realized healing is not you just heal and then it's over. We recognize the need for maintenance, that it's an everyday process. So a big part of my mission is getting really real, like honoring the authenticity and the difficulties, but also the blessings when we can face it, where we turn the lead into gold, we turn the pain into jewels. And that's how crystals and beautiful stones are formed on the planet. So I'll leave it at that.
Yes. And for some of you that may not have watched my interviews or my testimony, you know, I grew up military. My father was 21 years in the military, and we were stationed in Montauk in 73 to 76. So that I was part of some of the things that happened there as a kid, and also some other projects, as well as had really beautiful interaction with kind beings who are helpful and supportive in the middle of that. And, you know, I took, after my first encounter at 4, I just had this really amazing activation that happened, impartation, whatever you want to call it, where I just knew love on a different level. It activated my senses to see things, hear things, know things. And, you know, I felt like I would be well to serve in a place of love and activation and helping other people. Like I knew that already, and with animals. So that was a biggie for me, is you know, connection with animals, being able to hear animals, understand animals, know what they're thinking, talking, you know, whatever you want to call it. And also some really crazy stuff with weather and abilities with that. And part of that is because I'm on talk with, I'm finding out now. But, you know, it's been a process for me, because some memories have always been there. Gosh. And then, I don't know if you guys find this, but it's like a Kleenex box sometimes. It's like you can run into someone or a situation or a book or a place, a physical place. And it's like you just barely pull the Kleenex, and then other things kind of trickle through and bleed through. So for me, my son-in-law is in the military, and I had went to a base that I had been to as a kid. I hadn't been to since we moved from there as a kid. And that was a real big package opening process of just being on the base again. And, you know, I don't know, I'll let you guys speak into this because this is one of the questions, but, you know, it was a lot all at once. And I mean, I was very thankful to be able to talk to Tony and Laura and have them in my life during some of that blade through, and just seeing and connecting some of the pictures that have always been there to even more things that were coming through. And, you know, I remember talking to Tony a few times and just saying, like, okay, I had to come to the conclusion that this is not just some imagination kind of thing that I had made up in my mind, when all the memories are the exact same. You know, the details are the same, the faces are the same, the colors are the same, the feeling that I feel in my body is the same. You know, you get to the point where, or I got to the point where I was like, I can't be making this up. Like, it can't just be all this, you know. And then there were things that were still happening. And even just this last year and a half, there's been things that are still happening. And it's just like remembering my sovereignty, remembering how to not completely lose my shit on a regular basis when things happen. You know, you guys have all touched on the dark night of the soul. And, you know, it was probably a good 3 or 4 days I can just remember absolutely like not knowing if I was going to be able to get up and do life. And then you integrate and you just kind of like process, and you eat and you take a shower and you go to nature, and you just, you know, and it brings other people into your life that confirm and help and support, because that's where you're at in that raw, vulnerable place. And then, like, just this week, I interviewed Peter Moon last week, and had a meeting with Stuart Swerlow this week, and I feel like I started all over again. So, you know, speaking to that about how it just doesn't happen, and then all of a sudden you know everything, and then you just are fine a few days. But it is, like Laura said, a process of a continuing thing where you just think you got it, and then like something else comes out of nowhere. And that's how I was today. And I almost didn't even do this show tonight because, Laura, you want to speak?
Oh, well, I love you so much. Thank you, for sharing that. And I'm going to ask you guys a question. And there's a feedback, so I don't know if somebody has their phone muted. But, I mean, it is so intense and it's so incredible. I unfortunately have to jump off 5 minutes before the top of the hour, and I could talk to you guys for hours and hours. So I know we're going to create more of this. That was really powerful. There's so much to move through, and it's so tiring and disappointing that this authentic experience that we're all going through, really facing things that most people wouldn't want to look at, so criticized. It's like the bully mentality is being empowered. The protection of children is being disregarded. I mean, even just looking at things throughout history, the Franklin cover-up, and a school of 46 kids getting molested, and 6 of them committed suicide because every teacher and everybody in the district allowed this pedophile to be just doing his thing, and the pain that's caused. So the strength of anybody that's been up against this kind of stuff, and the rescue kind of missions. I mean, it's obvious it seemed to also come from your higher self and this greater awareness and frequency. Can you guys Tony and Elena, and then Dr. Sharnael, what is that moment where you knew, even if you might feel isolated in the human scheme of things, when you knew that you weren't just subject to abduction, enslavement, manipulation, harvesting, because you're obviously you have something that they want, where you felt that break where oh my God, there is a light, not at the end of the tunnel, because it's so cliche, but starting with you, Tony, where did you, what's sort of a story that can explain that moment of, wow. And I know, you all talk about it a lot, and if these aren't good questions, you ask better ones, but just where that got broken, and you just were like, oh my God, there I am. There's so much more to this picture.
That was a lot of a question.
I asked really long questions.
I'm not saying long. I mean, there's a lot of quality to that question. There's a lot to it. I'll take it. I know Elena's. I can see she's the wheels turning. Doc, I just want to say that's exactly what she said about pulling the handkerchiefs out and how memories. So that's kind of what fell into my lap. People contact me and have similar memories. Some people have only a little bit, and some people have a lot. And there is always that realization, and it's one of the hard parts in what I do is talking to them, is that when they get that realization, you know what I mean, that, oh my God, that is real, or that really, you mean to tell me that, you know what I mean, like they get that and they go, you mean to tell me that's real? And you know, to you, I can say just like this: nobody dreams up some PTSD. There is never a nightmare that causes hardcore PTSD. And you know, and I'll shoehorn my disclaimer in here. Is that, you know, like I said, I'm a normal guy. I will never pretend to understand the full depth of female emotions. Right? I'm a little man. I'm a man. I have a lake of emotions, and women have oceans.
A little envious. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Well, you know what I mean? Like, I'll say that disclaimer right now. So the emotional context, because I know what I went through, and it's pretty emotional. And there's times when I set myself off too. I tell you what, I've been working on the book for almost 5 years, and I thought I was over the hard part of it, and it's painful. It is. And there's times I cry about it, but nobody dreams PTSD. And the reality of these situations is like Elena's experience, which was very, very dark. Like my experience, you know, I went through a lot. I was treated as not human on our standards. I was treated as a piece of equipment. And so sometimes abused and sometimes just maintained and put back. You know what I mean? Like, it was a very lonely, I adjusted to being alone for a very long time, twice. And so much so that I brought it into my organic life. I got so used to that my behavior in my organic life kind of pushed people away from me. And because I was sorting it out, I didn't know what I was. So like you said, and now to get to your question, Laura, about that moment. So during the time that I was there, after about 12 years in, I totally gave up. I thought, you know, I was living a Groundhog Day, and it was a very, very empty life. And I totally gave up, and I was programmed to not suicide. I'd been through mind control programming, and I was programmed to not be able to suicide, because that's kind of the linchpin of all the cloning program, all the programs. The linchpin is they get your permission, they talk you into it, and then because they can build off that and program you to not suicide. People that don't give permission get into the program 5 or 6 years to commit suicide. It's that simple, and then they wake up back in their body. I guess, I hope. But the suicide rate in the programs of people being abducted that's the only real safeguard that we have. So I was programmed because I had agreed in the first place, and they build off that in the programming, in the mind control, not to suicide. And so, but I gave up on life. I did not want to live anymore. When I was working on, it was basically a submarine. It was a submarine that was converted into a spacecraft. And it was the same day. My coworkers hated me. I was abused. The day-to-day life was terrible, and it dragged on for years. And in that moment, like, there was a time when I had an opportunity to possibly die. And it was in that moment when I gave everything up. Like, that's when I had that discovery. It was like a rebirth, because I totally gave it. I said, here it comes. And I was not violently suicidal, but I was at peace with it. It's like, I'm finally going to be released. You know, I wanted free, some kind of release from and it didn't happen. But because I had reached that state of mind, then everything else kind of didn't matter as badly. And that was really the beginning of my sovereignty. Because I was taken and programmed, and I was always kind of waiting for the next orders. I did continue to go and be, I lived as a slave amongst, in the Ceres Colony Corporation. I was a slave that's what the picture is behind me. But I began to grow at that point. I don't know what you call it, my soul, whatever it was, something inside me began to grow and become actually me. And it was when I totally let go of the word, you know what I mean? Like, I totally kind of let go of my life. It was that was the moment. So I think after that, when I was put back, I took a lot. That's why I took a lot of the damage with me personally. But over time, that I grew into me. And a lot of people go in, and you talk about all this stuff so well. It's how can you do that? Well, it was like 35 years ago for me, 39 years ago that I was taken, and then I lived those years. So it was a very long time for me to get over it. But it was in that moment. It was in the moment of absolutely giving up. And even though I wasn't programmed, that was the kind of my oh shit moment. So
it seems
How
like
about
in
you,
the vibration of giving up, something emerges. So, did Sharnael, do you think that? Thank you so much for sharing it. Sharnael, did you say something? Because we'll hear Elena's thoughts in her story, but I didn't know if you piped in there.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say that I totally agree and can attest. And I had talked to Elena before we got on, and she was just like, just breathe, just ground, and but the PTSD thing and the isolation, and not everyone is programmed to not suicide. Some people are actually programmed to suicide, as if you talk too much or you say something or whatever, then there's that. So Elena, speak into what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I didn't have this specific moment where I really realized that there was something more about being abused, because I was rescued. I was lucky enough to be rescued as a child. But then I even if my rescuers had locked this memory of this particular night of abduction, because it was horrible, like they brought me back in my bed and I woke up in the morning, I was bleeding, the bed was filled with blood. I mean, and I didn't know why, because they had blocked the memory, and I was 9, so a 9 years old can remembering that, it's not possible. So they did well to block my memory. But even if the memory is blocked, because what they explained to me is they don't really erase the memory, they just reroute it to another place in the brain. Then something can happen that can remake the connection, or you can, but it's not erased. It's imprinted in the soul forever. It's just rerouted. But so even if the memory is rerouted and disconnected, the soul, the and the body remembers. The
Yes.
body remembers, and all my life until very recently, going to the dentist was.
Oh my God!
It was yeah.
I'd rather have my teeth rot out of my head than go to the dentist.
Oh my God! I was shaking. I was.
Oh.
I was when I was a child, even a teenager. I was just jumping out of the seat and hiding on the side of it on the floor like this. And recently, because I'm an adult, I don't do that anymore. But it's I used to take 2 Valiums to be able to go to the dentist. 2 Valiums in one go. And even it was stressing when I was hearing the sound of the instrument, the drill. It was like I was hysterical. I was like that PTSD, like big time. Things like this, and also men shouting, because I had been, when I was rescued, they were shouting and making a lot of noise. All these things, I never could explain why. And it was like a nightmare every time I was meant to cross these situations, until 2018, when all was unblocked, because my ET friends came back after a few years' absence, and they took me on board the ship again. And they explained to me finally what happened to me. And they said, we're going to give you back. We unlock your memory, and we are going to give you back by dreams. And dreams were horrible, so I decided to hypnosis and do it my way. But at that moment, the PTSD disappeared. As the memory came back, it was like a flow. It was unblocked, and as it came back, I let it go. they told me to let it go, embrace it and let it go. That's what they do, this specific race of ETs who rescued me, these Nordics. They embrace their emotion to better let them go. So they allow themselves to be like angry or very upset. They allow it, they embrace it, and it lasts like 2 minutes and it's gone. It's gone. It's really impressive to see. So they're teaching me how to do that, even with the memories, and it works. I can go now to the dentist without any Valium, and I just sit in the seat, and it's fine.
Yeah, speaking of the dentist,
I keep canceling my appointments. I just want the laughing gas. I'm cool.
Yeah, no, I haven't been to the dentist, and just being honest, but I went this year actually, and I took a video of my hands because I could not, even holding my hands, could not keep my hands from moving, and I had to excuse myself to go to the bathroom because I was like, what is going on with me? I literally did not connect what was happening or why. I was like, get your shit together, like talking to myself going, what is going on? And then when I went back and sat down again, the dentist said, well, have you had some really traumatic experience with the dentist chair or something? And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God. And then I had to do it all over again and leave, and just I called Laura in the bathroom, and I was like, oh my God, help me just not to look like an idiot and not cry and have a nervous breakdown right now. And I had 2 Valium. He gave me 2, and I don't even do pharmaceuticals. I am like not a fan of any of that, but he had told me that it would help with keeping my mouth open because of my jaw and blah, 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 blah. But it's a good thing maybe, because who knows? But yeah, Laura, you want to speak into your own question?
Oh,
your awakening moment?
Awakening moment. I'm like dead and awake and happily trying to sleep and access the creative imagination. I'm not saying, I haven't really been asleep. I've been awake in a lot of places and a very sort of not awake in other places where I haven't given myself enough love or understanding. There, I need some like help, not from anybody. It's up to me. But awake as far as like being able to see through stuff, being able to acknowledge things. Yeah, I mean, that was always kind of there. And there might have been huge periods where it wasn't there. But when you're talking about like the dentist, like I never went to dentists and doctors until later when there was so much psychotronic weaponry and attack because things were starting to improve. I was starting to just be like, all right, I've gotten to a certain point of raising my twins, single mother, food stamps, like living out of vehicle, like people can't even freaking imagine. I got to a certain place where I'm like, I'm ready to tell these stories. I'm ready. I'm ready enough. And nature kind of brought it forward because I was like in surrender zone. But I always refused doctors and dentists. There was a really perverted doctor, and he ended up getting removed. He's the kind of person that's just like, you have a busted up ankle, he wants to give you a breast check. And yeah, I was like, this is what we do to people like you. Now. And then I started going ballistic because I started looking into everything. I'm like, how is this acceptable? I know I'm not the only one. And I remember finding friends and other people that were in agreement. And the parents were just sort of like, we're trying to maintain status, and this isn't important. It's like they put that in front of the kids. And that really disturbed me. So wait, I'm going way off tangent, but can you help me bring it back around?
Hold on. One of the questions that Elena had for everybody.
All right. Okay. Yes. Say that. And then I remember now, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, you want to finish real quick?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I wanted to actually not go off on that tangent. So if we could bring it back to what she had to say, and I'll wrap it up real quick.
Well, she was asking about what a good thing to discuss was how to heal and transmute all these horrendous experiences. And, because Tony, well, you keep saying you're a regular guy, and, most of us got to do life too in the 3D world. And I remember when some of this was happening, and I actually had run into someone, and it sparked some more things of like, oh my God, I know you from this. And I remember feeling and having conversations with this person who had memories the entire time, like 100%. Like they tried many, many times, and he wasn't able to get wiped. So I guess there's a small percentage of that for people that it happens to. But what I said to him is, how in the world do you do life like this, knowing all this stuff, and still like walk around and like get groceries and do,
Yeah.
So there has to be
0 cents.
There's an opportunity for healing. And, how did you deal with that, Tony?
Oh, I still don't. That, so I always say I'm a normal guy. I do, skeptics are like, I've had skeptical people say, well, he's got schizophrenia or he's crazy or whatever. But you know what? I get through my life. I'm a totally functioning normal person. So there's no other, but I still don't. And also admittedly, I kind of don't fit in. I'm a little weird, with what I know, because I see things from that angle, from the perspective of what I've been through. And people don't. And most people don't. Most people don't see, the titanic changes of the government or just the corporations, what they do. And you can see that it's not in our interest. It's in somebody else's interest that isn't to be found. And I know because I was up there and participated in that lifestyle. And so I see things differently and I react to things differently. And so it makes me weird. Right. So I still haven't really coped with it. But it is what it is. It also makes me grateful. I'm also very grateful to go to the grocery store and very grateful to know the people I do and to live, how we do, because it could always be worse. I know that it could always be worse too. So I try to be as grateful as I can. It's not easy.
That is probably like the greatest antidote. And, want to hear from Elena on her thoughts about that. I got to jump off real soon, like in 5 minutes. And I have one more question just to leave you guys with. And I hope you guys keep continuing with this roundtable. And I don't want to like shift gears. And so Elena, what are your thoughts on that? And then if I could just end with one question, then I'll have to play it back if I don't have you'll remember what, all right. What are your thoughts based on what he shared? And then I got this one last question before I go, but I hope you guys continue. I mean, this is like the most incredible conversation I'm going to miss out on. I want to create more of these. So Elena, what is kind of similar question?
Well, the way I personally find a purpose and a meaning in everything I've been through is that it serves. Find a purpose that it serves, and it's the healing. The bad stuff I've been through, the traumas, I find how to heal them by helping others, other abductees, by helping them accept it. The acceptance is a big step. It's like, well, I mean, basically what I went through was a rape, and you have a phase where you need to accept what happened to you and say that was real, that really happened to me, and you take it as yours. If you don't take it as yours into your body, as something that is part of you, you can't transmute it. You can't do anything to it because you keep it outside and you can't, it's there, it's blue. But if you just take it in and say, okay, that happened to me, it was horrible, but I've went through this, it's part of my cells, then you can transmute it and then you can take it out for good. But you need first to take it in and then you take it out by talking about it, meeting other people who went through the same thing, exchange, and then it gives you a feeling of not feeling alone anymore. You're not the only one to have been through this. And then helping other people. And I find, Tony, you do that well as well. You help now through your Patreon. You have something course to you help others who've been through the same thing as you to heal. You give help. You teach how to get out of this. So I found the same thing, helping others to understand what happened to them and to just accept it and then let it go. Because you can't let it go if you don't accept it first. You have, that's what I found as a healing, and seeing others healing heals me as well. So that's what I would say.
Can I leave you guys with one question before I go? And I hope you guys keep talking. No, that is absolutely, that everything that everybody said is. I can't wait to listen to this again, and I want to create more of this, and I want to create more of a space where we can talk for 3 or 4 hours. And sometimes I'm really tired. Like I can't talk to people on the phone. I can't do, but like, and it's no judgment on anybody. It's just a frequency match. Like with you guys, it's like literally like, oh my God, 3 days have gone by and we're still talking. Here's my question. So understanding like the multidimensional layers of it all, which you both understand, there's that ground level, the hybrid families and how they're kind of answering to these, overlords or secret space programs or making agreements, this and that. They're blaming all the good people and they're just acting like the heroes on a facade level. When you see the larger picture, being sort of outside of the construct of time, which is a very low vibration when Mother Earth is not limited to that, have you seen sort of a progression of service to self entities and see sort of the spectrum of frequency where you sort of see a species and almost like their evolution or their healing? Have you kind of witnessed like, oh my gosh, this species like enslaved me, but later on down the line, I met another version of them where they were liberated. Do you know what I mean? Or anything within that spectrum you can speak to? And then I got to jump off in 5 minutes. I'm all good. But you know what I mean? Like
I have a story, but maybe I don't know.
But all of you, I could just literally speaking back, creating. All right, I'll be quiet.
Well, there are different levels of consciousness and different paths of consciousness. There's no one. I think. Talking about for instance, the reptilians, the Sicars I'm going to talk about, and like us or the Nordics, or it's not one above the other. It's people who took different paths of evolution of consciousness, that there are different places. And I connect regularly with Thorhan, my protector, by telepathy. And sometimes he shows me things. I can see through his eyes. But that time it was a memory, actually. He connected to me and he was emotional. And I just felt his emotion exploding in him and just going out. And I said, what happened? And he was crying, but it lasted like 1 minute. But the emotion was so intense. And he said, I just witnessed the most amazing thing. So he replayed the memory in his head so I could see it. They had the Federation had taken an underground with some reptilians. They took prisoners. They evacuated the reptilians, and one reptilian lord. They're quite grumpy. They're quite like not happy at all. Not nice people. Not nice. And on the shuttle, evacuation shuttle, there were personnel from the Federation and handling these reptilians, and this reptilian chief was there, and he was very grumpy. And Nordic extraterrestrial woman was in the team the evacuation team, and she came to him and she had compassion for him, and she went to him and she radiated compassion. She felt sorry for him and she radiated just love and compassion. And this reptilian had never felt this because he was never in a situation to feel that towards him, compassion towards him. That never happened in his life, ever. And Thorhan said to me these words, he liked the taste of it. That's so funny because they speak frequencies like taste and colors sometimes and smells. And he said he liked the taste of it. And he said he saw this being just cracking up and falling like stumbling, didn't fall on his knee, but I saw the image. He stumbled, and 2 guards took him, and he was deeply emotional, deeply touched. He was transfigured, and because of the encounter of this vibration field of compassion of this woman, and Thorhan witnessed that. He was there, and he said it really touched him a lot. So that's something I can tell. That can happen.
Just, I'm just sitting here listening to her. I love hearing this. You're putting things that are, Elena has a way of putting things that I find very complicated and saying them very simply, so that I go, yeah, I knew that.
I have the impression that I do. I have the impression that I do the reverse. That I take something simple and I tell it completely.
No, not at all.
Thank
So
you.
what you were saying about healing, how you can absorb something, is something that I think I fight with. It's something that everybody knows. We all know these things, but do you practice what you know? Right? We all know how to make breakfast, but everybody goes out and buys breakfast. It's kind of like, metaphorically. But when you say that you need to accept, like the emotional thing where you accept it so that you can transmute it and just get over it. And I know people like that are gifted at that. But so many people aren't. And so many people never release anything. And the people that I work with, so touching on that, so that's what fell into my lap by going public. I just wanted counseling. And I did a few interviews, and one led to another. And here we are, hundreds of interviews later. And so Jackie, my co-host on Patreon, is good at web programming and created my website. And because that keeps up with more people, I couldn't keep up with everybody, the traffic. And so we put a memory course on there. But I think that's one of the biggest things, is that when people have the memories of trauma deleted, they can't absorb it and transmute it. And then the pain of it stays with them.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got my memories back that I could easily put my finger and say, this is why I'm claustrophobic. This is why I'm afraid of it. This is why, have these relationship problems. I could look at it. And when I got my memories back and I remembered all the trauma I'd been through, it was easy to deal with. It really, some things are easier than others, but it was much easier than dealing with than being totally in the dark of why I felt this way, why my emotions didn't line up with my life that I'd lived. And so many people are like that. So the biggest thing that I've learned since I've got my memories back, documented my case, and gone public and spoke about it publicly 5 years ago, the biggest thing I've learned is that it's not unique. My story is not that unique. What's unique is that I remembered it. It's very common for people to, I get contacted constantly. Everybody that comes forward must be contacted quite a bit, but people are still coming. It's a bottomless reserve of people that contact me and go, man, I saw your interview and I think I went through something just like it.
Me too.
What do I do? And so that was where, we started my website, TonyRodrigues.com, and and lately I added a thing for like a consulting fee, because some people need to talk on the phone. And Jackie put it at $60, but whatever. I talked to a lot of people on the phone. But what I found is that the best therapy is just being able to talk to somebody impartially about it. Just like you said, you can't talk to anybody about it. And these people have memories like this. Some people are fortunate and have a spouse that will listen and loves them enough to accept what they're saying. But it's hard for me to accept what I say sometimes.
Right.
From what I remember, it's very difficult because some of the things are very uncensored and very bad, very traumatic, so it's some people just aren't. Some people's spouse might not be equipped emotionally to listen. And when you don't have anywhere to talk to, like you said, talking about it for me has been the absolute best therapy that I could have ever had in a situation like this. Luckily, I did interviews and people asked me questions. The other thing is they put memory blocks in you. So it's not one pill. They don't just give you an eye drop or a pill and then you forget everything. It's not, or they don't hit a clicker. It's actually a very elaborate process of memory deleting that the programs do. It's very elaborate. So you overcome some things and don't overcome other things when you start to bleed through memories. And like you said, the Kleenex box. Some people get a memory that reoccurs. First, it comes in a dream from this, because it's like a splinter thing in your subconscious, and your mind keeps replaying it over and over again. And then when it unlocks or unpacks, it leads to a dozen other memories, that pull out with it. And then at that point, it's too late to forget. You can't forget it because
Yeah,
unlike
but
a dream,
yeah,
unlike a dream, it has a great emotional anchor to it. Dreams have emotional anchors. Some dreams are very emotional, you can have nightmares or whatever, but you know that it was a dream, right? You wake up and you know that was a dream. There was nothing real about it. Whereas these are different because inside the memory, when you're having it in the form of a nightmare, there is reference to past and future. Like that person, when you're in that state, you can remember being before that and after. You have the context, and the emotional anchor to that is much more profound than a nightmare, for instance. So talking about it is a big deal, and coming forward, and I'm learning as I go. I'm not a doctor, but it fell into my lap that I'm the guy that people call because they see my info, and there's an apparatus now. So it fell into my lap and I don't really research. I really wish that I was more scientific and I wrote down everybody's info, because I could do, it's a great body of work over the years that I've learned so many things from other people, because not everybody's being taken by the same people,
right,
by the same programs. They're being taken from things all over, from beings from all over. And so there's a big variety and contact. And there are a lot of things, some things wonderful that I've heard, very few, and some things that are absolutely harrowing. And so learning the way you said it, to take it in and transmute it, I'm gonna steal that, Elena. And I'm gonna steal that, and I'm gonna use that with people, because I think that's an important step. And then one thing that I always ask people is, are you ready to deal with this? Because you can tell when somebody's right on the verge of remembering. There's a resistance, and it's their own resistance, and they're on the verge of a big memory. And I always say, like, are you ready to remember more than about yourself, something that you may have lived through, than you want to deal with? In my circumstance, the person that I was in that time that I'd forgotten is not in line with the person I am. And there's a lot of things that I might find embarrassing, but that was who I was. And I accept it. I accept it for what happened. And it was kind of too late. I did an interview and said everything right out of the gate. So it was too late to hide anything. So I gave the good and the bad. But that person was me, but it lived a very different lifestyle than I do and have. And so was it kind of a different person, different set of morals. And that's something that people are up against when they get their memories back. Is, are you okay with that other person, those memories of you being somebody different? And I forget what even the question is now, but it's great to talk about these things. It's neat because right here we have three. There was three people that you guys probably all get contacted by people with different circumstances, but it's kind of the same thing. We're all three. And then the spiritual aspect about it. So I'm doing some talks, and I'm going on the road. I've got a couple conferences scheduled this year. And what I found is that a lot of ET contact is 100% channeling. People get it in a channeling sense, like a spiritual thing. And so, but the spirituality, what I went through in the secret space program, and spirituality of people in the New Age is kind of the same thing. Really. I mean, if the truth is the truth, it either works or it don't. And the info that I've presented checks out. There's a lot of things that check out and work. And when I look into, in the early on, when I was in Project Grow Flame, it was a CIA intuitive project in the very first years that I was taken. And you look into the spirituality and how they broke the science down of ESP and remote viewing and just quantum holograph manipulation. It actually does work with spirituality. What a lot of people, it's all the same thing. It's been rebranded so many times that people think that there's a difference, but there's really not. There's really not a difference in mentalism and a lot of spirituality, and a lot of the I always look for common denominators in all religions, and they have common denominators, and they're set up to divide. Somebody was very smart with doing that throughout history by dividing everybody. Mm-hmm. But really, it's all the same. It's kind of, we're all talking about the same shebang here. We're just way ahead of what our media is teaching us, or the schools. We're way ahead of that, and we'll catch up. We're going to catch up. I just don't know if it's going to be sooner or later.
Yes. Well, and going back to not just what we were talking about before Laura had her question, with the helping part, I don't think anybody was like a little kid and was like, when I grow up, I want to be able to, talk about all these things, and I'm going to have all these memories, and I'm going to have to talk about all these crazy things, and I can't wait. And I mean, for me, I didn't want to go public, because I didn't have enough things to connect to even make it make sense yet. And I was still trying to work out my own healing of not just be completely a wreck about it. But then there got to be a point where someone did ask me to talk about it and to be interviewed. Carrie Cassidy had me on, and I did. I shared some things, and I when I was finished, I was like, oh my God, why didn't I do that like a long time ago? Because I felt like in my body and my brain, like everything, I felt like this weight had been lifted, and I got so much peace about it. And I'm like, wow. And then you're right. All these people were contacting me saying, hey, me too, and this. And, you start to attract other people who may have a facet of something that you went through, and that triggers another memory, and also can give you confirmation that you weren't freaking crazy, and it's like, on one hand, you don't want it to be true, and you hope, oh my God, please don't make this be true. But then when you realize that it is, there's a part of you, a part of me that was like, oh, no wonder, no wonder this happens when I do this, or this happens when I do that, or, like you were talking about, the memories in the body doesn't forget. But when that seep through comes and you're starting to connect some things, it's like, oh my gosh, okay, that totally makes sense. But different people will be able to support along those ways, and talking about it definitely does help. Now, going back to Laura's question, is of having an experience with something or some off-planet situation where they could have been seen as bad guys, but then turned out good. I know that I was messed with why my mom was pregnant, even before I came out. And how do you, so, and I just knew that, and I could see things, and it was hard to explain, how that happens, but it does. And I had never heard anybody talk about that. I had never had anyone say, oh yeah, they do that with my lab, or, blah, blah. I mean, I just knew it, but didn't talk about it because it sounds crazy. And how Tony was saying, it's good to have a spouse to be able to say things to. Thank God I'm with my childhood sweetheart, and as things were popping up, I would say to him, I know this sounds crazy, I know you're not going to believe me, but blah 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 blah, and I would tell him. And after, like, I don't know, however many times, he finally looked at me and he's like, baby, why do you keep saying I know you're not going to believe me? Why do you keep saying I know this sounds crazy, but you're not going to believe me? Why do you start everything with that intro? And I asked myself, why am I doing that? And I realized it's because I had a hard time believing what I was about to say. It was me who was like, this is so out there, but I'm telling you, this is real, and so, coming to grips with that. But I went to Mount Shasta, not last January, but the January before, and there is some crazy, amazing positive things happening there. But also, I was going there on purpose because the PTSD for me at that time was at a height. And I went to go see a therapist that supposedly, works with that. And while I was waiting to go see her, I went to go get a massage because I'm like trying to calm down. But here I am at the table, and this massage head lady had stepped in, and then she's like, I'll step out real quick. And as I'm laying there, I literally have my eyes closed, and I feel a cold something next to me, and I know something is there. And I literally hear their thoughts, and when I open my eyes, there is a gray standing there. And my first response or reaction was, I'm going to die right now. I literally have never, I don't recall being more afraid in any moment of my life than that moment. And then instantly, I'm shaking talking about it. And then instantly I saw his eyes or her eyes change to be different. And I heard this thing say, I'm so sorry. And then I said, sorry for what, in my head? Because I couldn't understand it. I was just computing a lot of things, emotions and thoughts. And instantly I saw what he was seeing. And he was actually, I don't know, was the one who was ordered to do this to my mom, to do this to me, and while my mom was pregnant with me. And he had come back for whatever reason to, and this sounds absolutely nuts. And I don't even give a shit if you care to believe me or not. I'm just telling you this happened. And there's nothing that you can do to take that real thing that happened away. Now, when this lady came back into the room, I was a mess, and I looked, and this thing was gone. And I literally out of my mouth go, oh my God, there was a gray just standing right there. I mean, that's just the thing that shot out of my mouth. And she was like, okay, your clothes are right over there, and I'm going to get you a glass of water, and blah, 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 blah. And also, there's not a whole lot of people that you can go around explaining that story to, and here I am publicly explaining. But, and it was explained to me later that some of these lower kind of 2D, whatever, slave type things actually are under a lot of orders to do things that they may not even want to do. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was just for my own personal healing that this thing came back to tell me that, because I had been on this journey for healing and that this was a piece I needed. I choose to know, but that is one of my things that I could say of seeing something that was what I thought to be as malicious at that minute, of the memory, and then having it restored, and also remembering that I picked this on some level for whatever lessons to get stronger, or to, whatever my role is here, in my avatar person on this planet at this season in time. So, that helps me too a little bit. And that kind of like brought me back a little bit even today, of just telling myself, you picked this, okay? You picked this, you're okay, you got it, you picked this, and there's lessons here, and this is gonna help me some way, but Elena, you want to speak into this, and I'd love to hear Tony as well, or whichever one.
Well, just to follow what you just said about, I chose this, we don't choose everything. What I've been explained is that, and I truly believe it, is that before you incarnate into a body, an avatar, you're going to pick the tools that you're going to need to perform your missions. And the tools can be, I'm going to have a car accident, or I'm going to be disabled, or I'm going to be in an abusive relationship. The tools you need to tune in with the bad energy, to be able to learn from it, transmute it, and help others with it, to go through the process. So you pick these tools, but there are things that you don't pick, because also shit happens. And I swear, many of abductions is just shit happens, because they just harvest millions of people every year to do their stuff. So I understood how do you identify that when something bad happens to you, it's something you've chosen for a purpose, positive purpose at the end, or is it something that just shit happens? Well, what you've chosen as a purpose to help you perform a mission, this trial will, this ordeal will, after you went through it, you will feel stronger. You will feel you will have learned something, and you will feel stronger after this. But if this ordeal breaks you down, really hurts you badly, and you learn nothing from it, like just that evil exists, you didn't choose it. That's how I think you can identify it. So I think what happened to you with this gray, if that taught you a consciousness lesson, or you felt better afterwards, maybe there was a contract somewhere, but other things that happen in your life, maybe you didn't choose everything, because things really damage you sometimes. So that's my thought.
What you think, Tony?
A bunch of stuff, and what she just said is like,
yeah, just say whatever. Yeah.
So I always tend to look at it as, impartial. So I always try to think about, in my own case, I get picked apart all the time. So I talk publicly, and then I look on the comments, and it's funny because the first time a video airs, everybody loves it. And then after a month, that's when the trolls come out, and the real people that watch 30 seconds of it and then make fun of it. And so I'm always trying to, I kind of always look at it defensively like that. So a couple things. Once, there is a little bit of correlation, because I've had other people tell me the same exact thing, that during a massage, or people in acupuncture sessions have contact right then and there. And
Really?
in a massage site. So like, you're not the first one that said that during a massage they woke up and there was a gray there. I've heard that before. Or like a dark being, it's something in darkness. It's a massage. There's something going on there. So I don't know I'd like to look at where you live, and like, I'd like to really put a microscope on it. But I've heard it from other people completely separate from you saying the same thing. So, I mean, I know that whenever somebody gives me some kind of overlap like that, it feels good. But I'm not saying it to make you feel good. I'm saying it because while you were talking about it, I thought, holy shit. I've heard it before.
Wow.
So there's that. Man, when you're talking about, Elena just took it to we're getting advanced when you talk about pre-incarnation, destiny that you're choosing, So I believe the same thing. And I kind of have my co-host Jackie and I kind of go round and round about it, because she believes in free will during your life. And I say, well, you do have free will, but you also have a destiny. You have a free will, but I can get up right now and head down, drive to Florida if I feel like it, and I have the means to do so. Or I can just go to bed and have my day that I have planned tomorrow. So that's my free will to do. But it doesn't matter, because no matter where I'm at in the future, whatever goalpost, whatever waypoint that I've chosen to bring my destiny to me will find me. Doesn't matter what my free will does. And you choose these things prior to, and you actually, I believe that you actually have to choose your advantages and disadvantages before you incarnate too. Like, you have to choose your disadvantages, things you have to overcome, like I'm chronically late, for instance. Everywhere I go, I'm always late. I think that's something I chose. I think it's a disadvantage I chose, because whatever. So, but I think that these are things you incarnate. You have a mission. Everybody does. And so I love to hear Elena say that, because it's something that I've always known. You know what I mean? Like, I feel it because, well, I don't want to dilute the time with re-saying my story, but there's a part in my story where there were times when I learned this stuff by being in contact with my higher self, for lack of a better term. That, and what else was I going to say? The one other point on what you were saying. Oh, the MyLabs. So prenatal genetic manipulation is very widespread, and it's usually military. It's usually MyLabs. So MyLabs, I get a lot of prenatal things. I wouldn't be surprised if you had some sort of contact when you were 4 or 5.
I did.
You had another contact, and 12 is a magic number for females. 12 years old in the military. In military contact, some right around 12 years old is the magic number. They like, that's a sweet spot if they're going to take you for a service. Like 12 years old, I found at 12 and 32. And a lot of women, I think naturally, right after 30, you know what I mean? Like, there's a big change in, I don't want to say it's not physical, but there's a big change in mentality of women between 30 and 35. You know what I mean? Like, they totally kind of snap out of the mode they were in and become, more oriented towards different things. So that, all lines up. So when you say prenatal, your mom was taken prenatally and they did treatments on you, then, there's a lot of it looks like I'm lagging. My computer's lagging, but there's a lot of things that happened, and there's a lot of evidence people I've talked to that felt the same way and had actually evidence of it. Had their parents tell them like something weird happened. Your mom went to they called her into the military hospital while she was pregnant with you, out of the blue. Like that's happened, and a lot of people report that. And it just so happens when I kind of shake it out and you glean information out of everything, out of their whole life, that most people don't get strong memories back until they're later in life, 30s and 40s, late 30s, 40s, 50s. And when you sit and really stretch it out and go, what happened when? Let's look at every little thing and really shake it. Then things start to take a picture. A picture emerges, and usually and you can go right back to the prenatal time for people, and those are people that are taken for a specific purpose. So when I was taken, I was kind of thrown into the heap. So they tested me to see what I was good for, what I could do. Then when I served my purpose and was no longer optimum for that, they would retest me and train me for something else to do. And that happened several times because I wasn't groomed for the position. I wasn't groomed to be a soldier, for instance. So people that are groomed for a specific thing, science, soldier, military, they start them in a prenatal way. And I wouldn't be surprised also if we looked into your family history, if not only your parent, like you said, your dad was in the military.
And his dad.
Right. So,
yeah.
Right. So that's also a common denominator. And you can look at that, and also people they hung out with and when and where. You can look at funding for programs that would shake out usually when I look at that stuff and I go, well, so you were right here. You were at this military base. Let's go have a look at that on the CIA declassified library.org and just put in that thing for those years, that military base for those years. And all of a sudden CIA funding pops up for a weird program. It happens a lot. That's one of the places I look. These are things like, and I'm not going to run up to the Capitol Hill steps and prove these programs. That's not what I'm doing here. What I'm doing is when somebody, like you said it all the time. You say, when you say to your spouse, this is going to sound crazy, and you're afraid, and it's like emotional. It's hard. Like you said, you were shaking when you were talking to it. That is par for the course for people that I talk to. It's absolutely the experience. And when you can glean any kind of information that supports their memories, then it's very empowering, because now you no longer, if I can give you just one or two things that say, you know what, yes, you remember that, but this is why, or this is, other people do that, and this is real. Even if the memory, because memories are not video quality. So there's a lot of details we get wrong. I got details wrong, especially in the early years of what I was remembering. I got a few things wrong, but it turned out I just didn't remember everything about it. So I had a different perspective. And so in the beginning, it's a foggy thing, and you're looking through the fog at memories. There's a lot you don't see. So it looks like you know what I mean? You look like it's crazy. But if you can just see a few things and get some confidence behind those memories, then you can pull out better handkerchiefs out of the box. And it really builds momentum. And you will reach a point where there's a real conscious decision. And do I want to remember more?
That's that's the next question I was going to ask you, actually, is
a conscious decision. And you cannot undo. It's a tall cliff to jump from, and you cannot undo that decision. And some people are not ready for it. And I'll say that I'd say more than half are not ready for it, and they stop right there. And I don't hear from them again. But there are some people that kind of see the value of it. And because do you want to remember yourself doing something horrible, experiencing something horrible? Do you? Like people in a relationship, a lot of people, I had a married couple, they were married for like 40 years. And we were sitting around having drinks, and we're talking, and they were saying, did you ever have an affair on each other? Did one of you ever have an affair? And they both said, I don't even want to know. I don't even care. If she did, I wouldn't want to know that.
That's a great analogy.
We've never brought it up. So that's what I'm saying. It's a horrible thing. Why would you want to know that? Why would you want to know? And so your memories are like this when you know what I mean? Like if you witnessed a murder or something more terrible, I don't want to even throw the words out. I won't quit right there. But if you witness something really bad, you wouldn't want to know, right? Until it matters, you know what I mean? Until it becomes relevant, or where you're at now is sorting out the emotions. Like I said, you don't dream PTSD. PTSD just doesn't happen without trauma, right? So where there's smoke, there's fire. So when you're trying to unravel that, these memories are invaluable for that. Some people are ready for it, and some people are not. And some people are still really afraid of coming forward. What's going to happen if I say I was in this program? Are they going to come for me? You know what I mean? Like some people really, you have to wrestle with that. And in the beginning, it was on my mind a lot too, but I did interviews immediately. I had only had my memories back for, well, about a year. It was about a year that I had my memories, that I had solid recall, like a quite a bit of recall after about a year. And then I just spoke about it publicly. And by that, now I've said it so much that if something bad happens, if I choke on a chicken bone, there's going to be conspiracy talking about it. Like Tony was offed, but so that's the only way to safeguard that. But some people, that's a very real thing too. You got family to be. There are aspects. I keep getting bugged about the billionaire that owned me in Seattle. People still want to know, why don't you tell? These are terrible people that were pedophiles and did horrible things and murdered people. Why don't you tell us who it was? Well, because I have a family to worry about. And these people are still alive, and they're still very powerful, and they're still very terrible. And I have things to worry about. And I have handed their names off to researchers and to special forces and to parts of the government that handle this stuff. So I've done you know what I mean? I've done my part, but I don't feel like I need to go tout names so that people show up on their doorstep saying, Tony said you're horrible. We're going to pitchforks and torches. So I don't want to start that. And not only that, but some of their relatives may be innocent. So, but there are things to think. There are things to consider when you're where you're at, unlocking memories. There are some very profound things, and not everybody has the same answer. What's right for me is not right for you.
Yeah.
Or the course of, you know what I mean? The course of the journey of healing is different for each of us. The same, we can give each other great advice, but really the journey is all yours. And, I always offer that to people that I've worked with. I say, you've got to do the soul searching. I'm not going to remember this for you. You're going to remember it, and you're going to live with it. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of the questions that has come to me over the last several years is, do I actually keep going, and is it good to not remember some of it? And, just asking questions and even talking to some of my family, I've been able to get quite a lot more. And I don't want to say too much about a lot of things, because it seems like although my parents can confirm a lot of different things, it's interesting how things will just come up. Like last week I was over there and I found out something else. My dad was talking about how he was recruited by the VP of Westinghouse in England, after we left Montauk, and we went to, I do remember being in England and going to the guy's house and hanging out with their daughter. And, I'm just a kid, so we're just doing all the kid stuff and just whatever. But now as an adult, I'm going, well, no wonder why Westinghouse wanted you, because this is Tesla material. You were working with all this stuff. It's like, and you can go back and look and go, well, why we were here, this happened, and why we were here, this happened. And you're right, talking about it, I did have some things that happened when I went public, and I don't mean people thought I was crazy, because I've been in a life of public ministry and service. So yeah, you get the people who half listen and the trolls and what have you. I don't give a shit about that. Like I just don't. What I do care about is my family and my livelihood and staying alive. And so when there were a couple things that happened that I physically was shook up and we're going, okay, maybe I don't talk, and I stopped for a while, and then I was like, you know what, screw that, and nothing's happened ever since, and I'm just gonna cross all my fingers and toes and my hair and my eyebrows and all those things. But I don't know how to not help people, and all these people who are watching and having these same experiences and having their comments, if it wasn't for people like, you guys who spoke about it, who made me feel less crazy and who unwind and reverse engineered my situation. There's so many people who are in the middle of that now, and this is powerful for now where we're at and what's going on in the world. It's because if all of this has been hidden and people are having memories about stuff that was hidden, then it makes this where we're at even more reasonable to understand that there's all these things that are hidden and denied and manipulated and controlled. And but Elena, I know you're just like biting the bit here to say some things, so jump in.
No, I'm just fascinated listening to you both. It's so inspirational, and I learn a lot too. One day I was saying to Thorhan, my rescuer and very good friend now, why don't the truth doesn't come out about everything? I said, about especially the children abducted and what's happening in the underground. Why all these things are not shown to the world, and why it is not known widely, all these horrors? And I just ended saying that, and I just realized, yeah, well, no, it would be too hard for so many people to hear these things. And he says, right. He said, he said this, you need to know just what is necessary for you to know. The rest will come in time. He said, sometimes if a truth is voluntarily hidden, it is not because it's classified matters or because it's military matters or something like that. Sometimes it's just because this truth is so horrible that it would be unbearable to know about it. And sometimes, imagine children hearing about it, old people hearing about it, people who are not ready. It will destroy them. It can destroy society. He said sometimes just that it's too unbearable and it's not necessary. And that made me ponder a lot. And I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and I'll just say this real quick before Tony gets in. One thing that Tony helped me with at the beginning, because I just had all this, like, it looked like if you just took confetti and threw it in the air, and it was like all the memories are just like disjointed and out there, and like what was together. And you had some great stuff, Tony. I mean, you still do, and your class is amazing. Of just take everything that comes, put a date, make a timeline, and put some order to it. And that was huge for me to be able to as I was doing it and putting pen to paper and making sense of some things that were coming to me, more things were coming through. And journaling and writing down your dreams and things like that, or even if it's just a quick flash, like have one unified place of like where you're going to keep all this content, which I don't think you told me that, but for me that's what I've done. Is just like, as soon as I hear something, I don't care if it doesn't make sense, write it down as a flash or whatever, because it could trickle in some other information. But go ahead and share.
No, that's step one. That is totally step one. I recommend to everybody is there's a bottleneck in the beginning. When I remember when I was talking to researchers, they say, okay, what happened? And I went, I was a bottleneck. I couldn't fit it all out in a few sentences. It takes hours and hours and hours to explain everything that I went through. The book isn't a little super long. I'm working on it, but the book is it's hard to articulate everything in there. It's a bottleneck of information because there's so much. And when you're uncovering things like this, so you've got to make some kind of sense of it. And most people come to me and have that bottleneck and go, if they finally talk to me and they go, man, there's so much more I wanted to say, but I can't think of it right now. I'm like, well, slow down and write down. And importantly, because the time aspect of it, we experience time one way, the programs experience time differently. They do. They have access to time travel and they experience time differently. I mean, it's just time dilation is real. So you have to keep an eye on when things happen. A lot of events are not as important as what happened as when it happened, because you can also look forward and say, you know what, you might be due for something in another year or two. There have been people that I've talked to like that, and I said, you
patterns.
Yeah, there are patterns that happen, and there are cycles that happen in nature that these programs use the cycles of nature to I don't want to give away a bunch of stuff here, but there are things that happen where they are on a schedule as well, and they can dilate time. So some things happen on a reoccurring cycle. But when it happened really shows when other things will happen. And what I found, and that's been because you're really talking about a series of coincidences that people come to me with. And is that evidence for anything? Am I going to go to a court of law with that and prove anything? Of course not. But there's only so many times you can hear it over and over again. And there are many times when I've been able to sit down with people with a timeline and pinpoint and go, wait a minute, hold on a second. So what happened in 2005? And they go, oh my God, something happened. Wow, how'd you know? And it's because it's all right there in a time. I'm looking at a timeline. I sit with a dry erase board when I talk to everybody, and I write down when it happened. That's really my biggest tool for unpacking people's memories, is because there's no one and done for the contact. It's very, very rare. Out of a million people, they all have contact in any way, even a visual. There's very rarely that it's a one and done. There's always a follow up. There's always more. And then when you look at, well, tell me when it happened, and you go look and you go, oh, well, that's weird, because everybody else that ever talked to me said it was the same thing, same amount of time in between. And like I said, the numbers keep coming up. The men at 17, the girls at 12, the men at 10, the girls at 5. It just keeps coming. It just keeps coming. It's always, when you try to make sense of it, and I'm not some kind of savant, but when you actually keep an eye on that, like I said, a pattern emerges, and it's kind of a big deal. We are putting together industrial strength memory erasing. We're fighting that, and we're very, very, humans are very awesome. I don't want to insult anybody. Like here it comes, right? I'm gonna insult everybody. We are awesome. We're beautiful. We are efficient. We are talented, and we are totally stupid. And you know what I mean? And for where we're at, we are not the top of the food chain. There are beings that are much more talented, much more beautiful, and much smarter than we are. And so we need to accept that. And a lot of people are going to, I know that's a bad tasting thought to digest, but it's the truth. And these are the people that are more advanced than us, and even and their physiology is more advanced than us. These are the ones that are erasing us and taking it. They're in charge of these programs, and they have the abilities. You're talking hyper advanced. Our psychology, we don't even know our own psychology. They know it better than us. I met an ET at one point, a reptilian, that made me puke. He could make me puke. He could make me feel fear. I was a marionette. He could make me do whatever, all my bodily functions. He had complete control over everything that I had, because he was a more advanced being than us. And we are at a certain level of our evolution, which is great. I'm not going to downplay it. We're awesome. I love humans. I love all of them. I swear, you know what I mean? Like, I love human beings, but I also know that we are not the height of creation, that there are more advanced life forms than us. And that's something we need to get our head around. I think a lot of our mentality bites us in the, a lot of the egotistical problems that people have would go away if they realized this, if they knew this, if we had one on TV, you know what I mean, that we could aspire to. This guy, you know what I mean, is way more advanced. So I don't want to I don't want to paint myself into any more of a corner than I already have.
Yeah,
No,
that's the case,
Well, and they do, as dumb as we are, we also have creative powers that they like to use for themselves, if they're not the good guys. And for those of you who haven't read Elena's book, she goes into all the different kind of races and what have you. And just on a science aspect, we've done scalar waves on these races, and you can see like who the good guys are they good with family, are they good with relationship, they're 3D, 7D, 4D, what have you. So I mean, it's scientifically measured on who's who and what's what, and so it's not, I mean, you can sit here and go like, well, that's just not true, but a lot of people believe that some people who fake their death or whatever, and that they're still hiding in some protective program or whatever, and we've done scalar waves on them too, and they're dead, and then there's a couple that aren't. So I mean, you can't have a scalar wave if you're dead. And then there was a certain person or situation that happened where someone had talked about a certain species, and that scalar wave was zero. There was not a scalar wave on it, just like dead. And they were saying that the creator was an issue, and the person who talked about it they did scalar waves on that, and that was an issue. So I mean, we could go down a lot of different paths and stuff, and I am really looking forward to your book, Tony, because that is going to be,
me too,
back whenever that comes out. But any like final things that you guys want to talk about? I know there's a lot of people on here who come to me and they're talking about like different ways to even know if something happened. Elena, you've had more good things happen. I've had the MyLab stuff, but I've also had really, really good contact as well that has been like absolutely beneficial on, I mean, it's mind blowing, the level of love that I have felt from my support and help and my team. But you seem to have, a pretty good relationship with yours on a regular, and, any final words on good, bad, encouraging people who are figuring out where they are, or just,
Well, my last words would be drop fear. Anything that is broadcast to you by fear, generating fear to you and inducing you to do actions generated by fear. Do this, otherwise it's gonna happen to you. That's control from whoever Dark Ones is. That's control, mind control. They use fear as a control tool. Once you go, hey, wait a minute, fear, it doesn't come from me, it's something that's sent to me. It's my reaction to a scary data that is sent to me. But if I choose not to react afraid to this scary thing that is presented to me, if I choose to ignore it and to go, yeah, whatever, that's not part of me, well, suddenly you're more powerful, and they cannot control you. They cannot control you. When you decide to not fear anymore, well, you cannot be controlled. Except, as Tony said, you meet somebody who can telepathically control you, but that's something else.
Fear was a play. Fear was actually part of that experience as well. Like the way I dealt with it was actually, it was trying to scare us. And the one who was the most scared was the one that it wanted to take.
Wow. It's just like animals.
It was, well, I'm saying fear is a big deal. And she's absolutely right about that. So on one hand, I was under control of that thing, but on the other hand, I wasn't afraid, if that makes sense. And it bypassed, it just didn't care about me. It wasn't that, it was looking for me to be afraid of it, and I wasn't.
You know what? Because fear is consent.
Yeah.
When you're
Wow.
Fear is consent. When you're alone in the woods and you hear the wolves, what you're gonna do is, you're in the dark in the woods, you fear, and because you are going, when you fear, it's a natural biology or something process that is natural. Fear develops your perceptions. Because you're feared, you're going to hear better, smell better, see better in the dark. If you're not fearful of the wolves, you won't open all your senses. You will walk in the wood like whatever. But being scared is a natural process that opens up all your defenses. Because when you're open, you're open and you're vulnerable. You're the prey, and they can smell the prey, and they can come and localize you and eat you. Fear is consent to be abused.
That is, I mean, I was gonna compare it because I
that's what they fear. They scare us. That's what it scares us.
Yeah, because it's like you're agreeing to be the victim in the scenario, in the contract.
Yes.
And yes, they do feel it. But I've always wondered, because I foster animals, and you can see all my animals, and we had some cats, and then like one day this one cat got sick, and it was hiding and doing all stuff, and they would attack them. And I was like, why are you guys got along, you grew up together. And, same thing with
Like
the
a
dogs.
magnet.
Like, I got one, all the dogs love all the cats and they're fine. But if they come in and one of them runs, they'll go after it. And they've hurt, they've hurt each other over stuff. And it's just like, what is going on? But that's what it is. That is so profound. I'm like, the whole thing was fear is consent. Are you kidding me? That is like, that makes so much sense. And same thing with parasites. We can have parasites in our body, physical parasites, or mold or fungus, and that actually puts out a victim code in the field where people will only submit to your lowest common denominator. And I've known that through science and just working on a biological level, and I've seen that over and over. It's like, well, you got these patterns. Well, let's see if you got parasites or if you got fungus or mold or something in the body. And every time, 100%. If you have that, this is what you get, because it's code. It's
Frequency.
Information that comes out into the field. And you're right. So you admit, I'm a victim, then cancel. Then they're seeing that. And go ahead, Tony.
Gosh, no, I'm learning just as much here. Again, these are things that you kind of know, but you don't put your finger on it. You know what I mean? You just don't realize it until somebody tells you, or somebody points it out and you go, yeah, that makes perfect sense, because that's how the animal kingdom works. And, I since I was a little kid, whenever there's a bee or a wasp that flies around me, I don't get afraid of it. I get mad at it and it flies away. I get mad and I'm going to eat you. And I get mad and it flies right away. But people that are afraid, oh my God, a bee, it'll follow you. It'll keep going.
Yes.
Because it knows.
Yes.
Because you're consenting. You just put it in words what we know.
I'm the opposite. I don't get mad. I just go, oh, I love you so much. And then they fly away, and
you give it the loving thing, right?
Yeah, but you're right.
I'll give that a shot.
They're going to get stung. They're going to get it. Yes. That's crazy. You're right.
I'll give that a shot. I've been really trying lately. I've been just this summer, it's hot in here, but just this summer, I've been working on my hatred of bugs. Like I've been working on it. Like it's a living being. Like even it grows when they shoot it, and I look at it, and I'm trying to really kind of give it its justification. I'm working on that because I still think they're gross.
Well, and I understand because of probably some of the programs that you were in, but they trained us to be okay with certain bugs, and because of that, to this day, if like a fly gets in the car, and I remember one time I was in Montana going to Canada, and a fly got in the car, and everyone wants to kill it or whatever. I'm like, don't kill it. And then I didn't even want to let it out in Canada because I was like, I'm afraid it won't know how to get back. It's like, let's just wait. We're going to be gone in a minute. We'll be back in an hour. We're just crossing the border. But I will
keep it with you. That's funny.
Ants, spiders, anything that's in the house. And I'm like, get a cup. Somebody, let's help this guy out. But snakes, reptiles, I can't. I can't even watch it on TV. I can't even say the words. Like, that is my thing. But I don't know if it's anger. It's definitely not love.
Sure.
But it's more of a PTSD thing for me. But anyway, so where can people find you? We went. This is the longest one.
Yeah, Elena, it's late for you. Thanks for sticking up. You've been a trooper, because I know you're in Ireland. It's late for you. It's late here.
No, it's fine. I better at night.
Somebody was asking in the chat I'm reading, somebody was asking the name of your book.
Yes.
If you could go over that.
A Gift from the Stars. Yes. It's a really good book. Definitely.
So I tell my story, and then I give all the data I've been given by extraterrestrials about different alien races. So here we go.
Awesome. And Tony, when is your book going to be out?
Soon.
Tony.
So it'll be done soon. Like, I'm just in the end of it, which is really a lot of the detail. It's weird because I never talked about it in interviews, so it's hard to get it all in chronological order, but it'll be very soon, hopefully by the end of the summer. I'd like to go and have it available for sale at Mount Shasta, but it's not going to be done by the end of the month. But it's going to be very soon, and I'll be happy. It kind of sad to quit writing it too, to be done, because it's not like I'm going to make, this isn't fiction. It's not fiction to me, so it's it's my life. Yeah, it's a grief, exactly, and I'm letting go of it when I'm done. When I quit, I kind of don't want to quit writing it.
Yes. And there'll be more. So you'll pick up where you left off.
I've got some ideas for a couple short ones that are just going to kind of be informational about the book and about things that happen, kind of expand. And there's still stuff I know I'm going to not get everything in the book. It's just I'm not a poet kind of guy. So but it'll be soon. It will be available. I would like to just let everybody know there's TonyRodrigues.com, and on there's links to there's a consultation link, which is brand new, and then there's links to free interviews that I've done, and there are links to my Patreon show, which is we've got over 30 coming up on 35 episodes, and we've got some really good info where we break down things, and I've had some really awesome guests, a couple of them that you guys might have known, and that show's been great, and the Patreon channel's affordable. It's only $5 a month. You can binge it for $5, but that keeps it from being deleted like everybody else's stuff on YouTube. Yeah. So that's why there's a paywall there. It's only for that, and it's doing well. It's the show's done way better than I ever expected it to do. It was just something that I was figuring I'm taping interviews. Why not do this anyway? And it's really been good. So, but also on there, you can get a hold of me if you can email me directly or with anything. I entertain. Anybody wants to talk to me about anything, ask me any question under the sun. There's no holds barred. I enjoy question answering. And if I don't have the answer, I'll let you know. I just don't know. But that's on Tony Rodrigues with an S on the end.com. So all that stuff's there. There's a lot of info. And I love you guys. Everybody's been so good to me. The real reward from coming forward and speaking publicly is getting to meet people like you guys. They're awesome, and so many people that I've met that I never would have before. So it's been in that regard, it's been a blessing. The universe pays you back. So for things, so I believe in that, and it has paid me back. So, I don't want to tell anybody to volunteer to go through anything bad.
Yes.
But, when bad things happen, like you said, when shit happens to you, then the universe finds a way to pay you back. It's just we're all even, Stephen. All debts are paid by when we're all said and done. So,
well, and we can use it to help other people, because we can relate and we can understand what other people are going through on a way that nobody else can unless you actually lived some of that. But yes, and so definitely you guys follow up. Do you have a website, Elena, or somewhere where people can find you?
Yes, so I have a website, elena.danaan.org. So you can have access to where you find my book. I give some workshops and I sell some merchandise because I need to pay bills as well, like everyone.
Yeah.
And it's something I want to say is sometimes people criticize, but you should give away this information for free. Well, while we are just doing that at the moment and all day long and writing books, we don't have the time to have a normal job. Well, some do, but they struggle, and it's difficult. So we do our best, and so I
support these guys, you guys. Yes.
Well, I want to touch on that absolutely because we're at grassroots of disclosure, and if you want to get disclosure, we need to support each other financially. I mean, it's just how it is. When I came out originally, I didn't want to go for $1 because I thought that would debunk me if I just looked like I was a profiteer and making it up. But I didn't, and I wasn't. But now I'm to the point where this swallows a lot of my life. I mean, this swallows a lot of my life. Elena, you're up after midnight. It's every week. it's every single weekend I lose a Saturday and a Sunday, or, at least every week for the last 5 years. It's swallowed a hole in my life. And you know what I mean? Nobody would give every weekend for the last 5 years and not be compensated. So it's not like I'm making a ton of money, but there's a little bit of money to be made. The other thing is, if you send somebody an email, I want to talk to you, and they go, yeah, okay, I will. But then there's 50 of them.
Yeah.
If you pay somebody, they show up. If you pay them, they show up. I know I'm obligated. You know what I mean? If you pay me a little bit of money, I'll be there. It's just that simple, because people get buried. I feel so bad for the people over the years that have been buried. They messaged me, and before I could get back to them, I got 20 more messages. So they slipped through the cracks. And those are the people that I really wish I could have helped the most. But so the paywall thing works because it sorts things out, and it's important. And we should always support each other with where we're at, because the other thing is we're on the ground floor of this. We get a post-disclosure world. All this information that you've invested in is going to be very, 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 very valuable too. So it's worth every penny. And you know what? Originally I was going to give my book away in a PDF. And then I started looking at the editing part of it, and then getting on Amazon. It costs a ton of money. It costs a ton of money. And then, so now I'm thinking about it like, look, you know what I mean? Like, I broke into tears dozens of times while I was writing this. I think I deserve, so, it's not going to be outrageous, but I think I'm going to make it a little bit more pricier than what I originally thought, because, it's.
I'm glad you brought that up.
It was a chunk of my life, man. It was like my life. And
I just posted about this, and I think Elena even commented on it. But when you get literally 100 texts and notifications and inboxes, hey, I have a quick question, or can you just answer this real quick? And it's like, no, I can barely,
Yeah, no, I can't. I haven't eaten. Right.
Yeah,
I have not eaten
all day today, honestly. And most days I don't eat until like the evening, and I'll hurry up and do, 6-7 interviews a week, and then, taking care of 5 kids and doing a job, and, also, consultations of quick questions like, what do you do for parasites? Or what do you do if you see an ET? It's like, that is a very complicated answer. It might be a quick question, but it's not a quick answer. And so that, and then the book thing too, this book for me, this was a download of information from me being in the project, of understanding time and gravity, and the tools that we have, and changing timelines and creating miracles on a technical way. And this was given to me, and writing it, paying for it, and people are like, why don't you give your book free? It's like, well, when you pay for my book to be free, I will gladly give it away free. But also the editor and the paper, and right now I'm putting it on audio, so I'm paying for studio time and recording, and editing, and publishing, and all of that too. So things cost. Just because we're doing this, doesn't mean that someone's funding all of that. God funds us, and that's cool. And also it is good. I'm glad you guys brought that up, because that's been a thing even just this week. I've posted a couple times going, no, actually I don't have 5 minutes to talk to a stranger that I really love and wish I could help, but also my kid is sitting right here, or my cat, or whatever, my husband that hasn't seen me in 3 days or whatever, so it's like, anyway. But go to swiftfire.org, get on the newsletter. We do consultations as well. I also do intuitive medical stuff, biofeedback. We use technology to help support in frequency and diagnostic tests. Great resources there. My YouTube channel got taken down about a month ago, so I didn't do a Patreon. I still jump back on the YouTube thing. Maybe that's something I'll do later. But right now we just started over. So I'm still trying to find everybody who used to be on there. We had like 40,000, and now we're like starting to ran over. So trying to get the word out for everybody who may not even realize that we're missing, that this is a new one and this is where to find me. But if you go to swiftfire.org and get on the newsletter, no matter what's going on, you're going to see what interviews are coming up, what interviews just happened, different resources, workshops, online stuff. And you get to meet awesome people like these guys that we bring on. And I'm just, to me, we're finding each other. And Tony, when you said that, it's like, that's the biggest takeaway, I think, of just this whole process. But also even in the last year or two, I think we're finding each other as far as those of us who are awake and see that there is a system versus those who are not really there yet. And, we're finding each other too. And there's so much power in numbers. And so, it does make you feel a little bit of relief to not feel so isolated, like you're the only one going through these things. And it's been a very big help to have people like you guys in my life to just go like, here's a text, and send some good vibes real quick, or whatever, just because it's an interesting time, and we're all having our version. And then this mixed with, constantly remembering and the healing process of that. So, but thank you guys. Love all of you who are watching. Love you guys so much. Love your hearts of purity and integrity and what you're doing for humanity. And you guys support these guys. Send your love, send your good vibes to them, their families, their work. And till next time, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Love you guys.
Thank you. Till next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.